Well, readers, I am so excited to have my friend Lynette Eason here today. We are talking about her new book, Serial Burn. This is a third in a series, but we give you more details. Let me first welcome Lynette. And why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, great. Thank you for having me. First of all, I really appreciate it once again. For those of you who don't know who I am an author and I write romantic suspense. Now, I've written over, I don't know, I think I'm on 66 or 67 um, book now. And so, yeah, so I stay pretty busy. And I'm an agent for the Steve Lovey agency, but I'm here to talk about Serial Burn, my latest book, and I look forward to doing that.
I love it. So we have is it Jesselyn? Jesselyn and
Jessalyn,
Nathan.
yeah.
Yeah, are the
Mhm.
two characters with lots of I love characters like this. There's problems in their past and they always are kind of resurfacing, but in this book they resurface kind of in a I mean, she cannot hide or run from the past anymore. So why don't you just explain what the book is about?
Okay, so, if you've read the first couple of books, you've been introduced to Jessalyn. I think, Nathan may have shown up at the end of Target Acquired just a little bit, but, Jessalyn has been in the series since the beginning. So the book is about it opens with a fire, and Serial Burn should give you kind of a clue there. And she's a fire marshal, and she gets called to the scene of this fire, and it's a church fire. So when you have a church fire, it's considered a hate crime, especially if
Mhm.
it's arson, if they know it's arson, not just an accident. So they call in the FBI. Nathan is a new FBI agent, and he is partnered with Andrew Ross, who is in the next book. And so they start working together to figure out who tried to burn this church down. And then another fire pops up, and another fire pops up. And all of a sudden, we have a serial arsonist. So they really need to figure out what's going on before anybody else gets hurt. That's really what the story is about. And of course, their backgrounds and backstories all come into play about this. And turns out it's a lot more personal than either one of them knew.
Mhm, and I know Jesselyn's story is especially heartbreaking. Do you wanna share a little bit about that? I mean, yeah, I don't think you're giving anything away when you share part of her
No,
backstory.
no, not at all, not at all. So, 20 years ago, her family was killed in a house fire, and it was arson, and the person that committed the crime was never caught. And so she grew up knowing this. It was her parents and her two younger sisters who were
Mm,
killed. Justin was 7 years old and was ended up being taken in by her aunt and being raised by her aunt alongside her cousins. So I mean, other than that tragedy, obviously, she had a fairly good upbringing. But she always remembered. She always had those memories of her family, and so the 20th anniversary is coming up, and lots of stuff that has to do with that in the story.
it makes sense why she's a fire marshal if that was such a big
Yeah.
part of her childhood and her life, and
Hmm.
then we have Nathan, who's part of the FBI.
Yes.
And we were in Washington D.C. a couple years ago, and we were just, because you walk everywhere, and there's people walking around with just they have like badges that just said FBI on them, and they
Ah,
were like going to meetings. They could have been like a tech guy for all we know. I don't know, but I think his 12 at the time, 12-year-old son, like every time, like look FBI, and I think there's just something I don't know. We just all grow up. They're just like really cool, like uber cool. I think even more than I don't know. I mean, we love all types of police officers and firefighters, but there's just something about about the FBI.
yeah.
So when he
Well,
shows up,
they're
and it's also
heroes.
yeah, they're heroes, and it's a bigger deal. It seems like when the FBI shows up in town. So
Sure.
tell us a little bit about Nathan.
Okay, so Nathan has a really interesting past as well. He also has some connection with tragedy and fire in his past. I won't go into all that, but He doesn't like fire, and so when gets called in to investigate one, he's a little, hesitant, um, but he does that, and so I mean, he grew up in a basic middle class family, with a brother and sister, and they do show up in the story because his background is all tied into his
Mhm.
family as well. And he's just a neat guy. Nathan's a neat guy. He kind of, I guess I kind of patterned him after my husband. He's can be chill but very intense as well.
Yeah.
And I just think he and Justin go well together.
Yeah, and it's a slow burn, and I love that we have right from the beginning, we have you're in the suspense, you're in the mystery, you're trying to figure out what's going on, but then you have this romance element, and it's I mean, I'm just amazed as whenever I read your stuff, Lynette, that I'm like, how can you tie it all in so well? Like the romantic parts and then the suspenseful parts and then the setting. It's so you do a really, really good job with that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes I wonder.
Yeah.
But thank you. Yeah, I'm not the most romantic person on the planet. I mean, I guess romance to me is more taking out the trash without me having to ask and putting the toilet paper roll back on the, you know,
Yes, yeah.
um, and more so than flowers and candy and all that kind of stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with those. It's just I don't know, I'm more practical, and I think my approach to the romance I think that kinda comes out a little bit in my female characters, but I might need to have flowers delivered at some point
You're like,
for
"Note
the
to
other
self
people.
sometime in one of these books, one someone else
Yeah.
needs some flowers."
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about also the setting, I mentioned that. Tell us a little bit about the setting and why that almost plays a not a character, but a big an element in the book.
Yeah, sure. So Lake City is a fictional town set in North Carolina. I set it a little bit of like an hour from Asheville, North Carolina, and I don't know if you know anything about that area, but it's not too far from me. I live actually about an hour and a half from Asheville, and I'm always there whenever I get a chance. My sister-in-law lives there, so I'm pretty familiar with it. I just love the mountains. Like I we're moving and I'm like, why don't we just move to the mountains? But anyway,
Yeah. Like,
you know.
why can't we just live by the mountains? Yeah.
But that's not an option right now, but maybe one day. But anyway, so that's one reason I picked that setting was because I love the area and I love writing about it. And also when you write with mountains and snow and cold weather, and you can have all kinds of cool suspensey scenarios like falling off a mountain, being chased down a mountain, that kind of stuff. So that kind of helps add to the plot a little bit. And it does have a lot to do with Jesslyn is her history is very connected to this town I made it, this city. Um, I made it so that she has a very personal stake in um, keeping the city safe, I guess is what I should say.
Yeah, you're like, "Hmm, how can I phrase this?" Yeah.
No, no, yeah.
Okay, so Lynette, I was as I was going over my notes and things that I want to talk to you about, I'm like, okay, there's just a major weather incident near your book setting, like fiction, even though it's fiction, near your book setting with all
Yeah.
the hurricanes and everything. And then Serial Burn, the release week is right by the large fires happening. And so,
I
okay,
know.
I don't know if you're a prophet or what's happening here, Lynette.
No, not at
What's your
all.
next book about so we can all be prepared?
I wrote the book a year ago.
I know exactly, like, that's why I'm like, "Tell me what your next setting is so those people can,
Be
prepare."
forewarned.
Yeah.
It's Whitestone, Tennessee, outside of Nashville, Tennessee. It's
Okay.
also a fictional town.
Be prepared, Tennessee. No, just kidding.
I know, right? Oh gosh, no. No, that's crazy. Yeah.
All of that
um,
happening, and it's tied in, like,
yeah,
both parts, like, the major parts of your book, the setting, and then the arsonist, which
yeah,
more is coming out. When we're recording this, more is coming out about they believe some arsonists. We don't know for sure, but that is a big play in fires today. A lot of fires are
yeah.
started by arsonists. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a lot of research into that and, like, especially what a fire marshal does, what their actual job is, and how they go about investigating a fire. So, um, yeah, it was cool research. Um, I don't know. It was the whole thing out in California and having the book. Actually had an interview postponed because of that they didn't want to talk about my book this, this close to the fires and stuff. I hope all that gets resolved. Not just because to talk about my book, but just because just
Yeah.
that's what needs to happen.
Yes. I mean, it's just so heartbreaking to see that. And but I think it all ties in, and there's a reason why I brought this up to go with your book, because the themes of why does God allow these things to happen? And
Yeah.
I'm sure we have friends that have lost. Our friend Danny lost her
Mm,
home in the
mm,
hurricane, and there's friends of friends that I know that have lost their homes in the
mhm.
fires, and these are really good people. And
Yeah.
it's not, and it's hard. And so I think with fiction, and I think this
Mhm.
is why it's an important thing that your book is probably one people should be reading. Like, not that
Yeah.
let's not talk about this topic, but let's talk about this
Mm,
topic in the
mhm.
light of fiction, in the light of bad things happen to good people.
Mm,
And it may
absolutely.
be hard to understand. And there might be times we might question, like, God, like, why do you let this happen? Or do you love me? Or any of those questions. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I've asked that question a lot in my life, and I can't even remember where I heard it, but it made such an impact on me. Um, well, okay, so oh, I know what it was. So my back when oh gosh, years ago, probably 20 years ago, there was a lady in our church who was murdered.
Mm,
And my pastor was doing her memorial ceremony, and he's like, we don't understand it. She was a wonderful lady, 75, 80 years old, and somebody that she had hired to do some yard work with her,
mm.
for her, had tied her up and set her on fire.
Oh my goodness.
And it was horrible. I mean, just trying to wrap my brain about around this about somebody that I knew. And so my pastor got up and he was doing the memorial, and he said, faith unable to be tested is unable to be trusted. And I was like, oh wow. Wow, that is so true. Like, no, we don't have the big picture. We
Mhm.
can't understand this stuff. And honestly, it hurts my brain to even try sometimes.
Yeah.
But I know, like, if everything was perfect, if God stopped anything bad from ever happening, then we'd never see him work. We'd
Mhm.
never see him do something so amazing that, we just have to give him the glory for it and have to give him the praise for it. And so I think, I mean, not that we want anything bad to happen. Of course we pray against that, but it's a sinful world. It's a fallen world, and bad stuff is going to happen to good people because we just live here, and until Jesus comes back, this is what we got. And and it's I think we just have to look for those God moments in the bad stuff,
Yeah.
and we'll see him because he's there.
Yeah. And I think when we read the Bible, we see a lot more people questioning God and questioning why
Yeah,
things are happening than
sure.
answers given.
Yeah,
And even the answers are, I go to prepare a place for you, and someday we
absolutely.
can have hope. And then that's like, okay, but this is still hard right now. But I think in my life when I've gone through really hard things, um, I after we adopted kids and things were way harder emotionally with them, just the trauma they'd
Sure,
been through, and then
sure.
hearing about the trauma they've been through,
Mhm.
and it just brought so much hardship in our home trying to deal with that. I remember like, God, you knew all this was happening and you still called us to adoption. Like, why? Why?
Mhm.
And it wasn't like an audible voice, but he's like, "But I'm taking care of you in other ways too. Like everyone's healthy." Like
Mhm.
we forget often. It's easy to point out the things that are going wrong.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. Yeah.
when we realize like God is taking care of so much that we don't see. Like my husband has a good job, and I
Yeah.
am able to stay home and yeah, yes, right, but be with the kids. And we do
Yeah.
have wonderful counselors that are helping them. And
Yeah.
so it's just a reminder kind of to turn that. And whenever we read novels, it might be like, oh, these poor characters, they have to go through so much.
Mm,
But the empathy we have through people in everyday life, as
mhm,
we see, Jocelyn's story, now just that's even though it's fiction,
mhm.
it's inspired by truth and God's
Sure,
word and
sure.
those elements. We can have more compassion and empathy on people that are going through hard things. And maybe we can give a listening ear or be there for someone because of fiction. And I think that's an amazing thing about fiction
Mhm.
is that you get to live these lives and experience things and
Yeah,
walk through these faith struggles
yeah.
and then put the book down and then
I know,
and
and
then reach
walk
out to real
away.
people. And then walk away and then reach out to real people in our lives.
Yeah, yeah, and, I I think as Christian writers too, now, we're praying over these stories. We're praying that, God, if this is for an audience of one, make sure it lands in that person's hands. And I actually um, had that happen to me with another story. I was actually typing this my I don't know if I've told you the story before, but I was typing my character's name, and I had named him David Hackett or David Hatchett, one or the other. They're very similar. I can't even remember now. And so I kept typing, and every time I would type his name, I would like type Hatchet, and then no, he's Hackett. And so I had to go back and switch it and whatever. So he was in the army. He was a bit of a con man before he met the heroine in the story. Her name was Summer, and so the bad guys are after him for some stuff he had done. He was in witness protection, and he decides that being married would help hide him a little better. Anyway, long story short, um, I get this email from this reader, and she says, "You're not going to believe this. I had the hardest time reading your book, but I'm in the middle of it, and I just want to let you know that um, I I was taken advantage of by a con man named David
Mm.
Hackett,
No
who
way.
was in the army." And she said, and there was something else that was very similar about him and my character. And the thing is, I think God changed his name. He just let my fingers
Yeah.
type the other name. And she's like, I will let you know how if I finish the book. And I was like, oh yeah, please let me know. Please finish it. Please finish it. So she wrote me back a couple of days later, and she's like, I just want you to know for the first time in years, I have a peace. She said, I've talked to God about this, and I am going to forgive him like your character forgave him. And I was just blown away that God would use that. And I mean, that sticks with me every time I get, I start writing, even with Serial Burn. Serial Burn was not an easy book for me to write. I don't know why. I struggled with it. I struggled with the scenes. I struggled with the words. Oh, the edits would make you cringe. But I got through. I
Wait,
got
wait,
through
I
it.
thought you would write it perfectly. I just pictured you as
Oh
someone
my
just turns
word.
in such a clean copy and
No, 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 not even. And so I was just like, okay, God, this is your story. So I need some help here. And
Mhm.
so, but I think back when I'm having trouble writing or just being like, why am I doing this? And I think back to readers like her, and I just thank God that He uses the stories, and I just it's my prayer that somebody will see something in the stories that they can relate to, and maybe even change their life a little bit.
Yeah, and I love that, and I love that, and I think one thing that like, we never know who God is. Like, sometimes a reader
Mhm.
will message us or email us or what reach out to us, but
Sure, sure.
more often than not, they probably don't. But we
Mhm.
never know who is being impacted, and I know, like I mentioned before, the kids we adopted some of them as teenagers, so teenage
Yeah.
girls are very hard to communicate with, but
Mhm.
they like to read. Some of them like to read, and I would just slide some books over to them and like, "What about this?" And they get caught up in these books that are like romantic suspense or,
Yeah,
young adult fantasy, whatever, but the
sure.
messages and they're like, "Later, I've been thinking about," and it's the message of the book. It's just like the through story, it can touch people's hearts in ways, and so even like something hard, which I was looking on Goodreads and someone said this had a lot of hard elements in it, even more than some of her other books.
Yeah.
Um, but they said, but it was so good. Like we never know how those hard, even those really hard elements
Mm.
that are like, I don't know if this should be in the book or this is so hard or I don't have an answer to this or how
Yeah.
am I going to have the character come out with something? Um, those are the things that touch people's heart and it can help them. And we may not ever get a message from them or a note from them,
Absolutely.
but God can do that.
Yeah, he knows. He knows. And I think that when our focus is on that, then he just uses it. And I'm just humble and grateful to, to hear occasionally that he does like how he does it. So that's
Yeah,
really cool. Yeah.
it's so cool. All right, so this is the fun thing I want to talk about because this is part of a series. So let's talk about the bigger picture of the series. Because like you're gonna love this book, so you gotta go make sure and go get it. But there's also other books in the series. Go get the other two, and then there's more coming. So why don't you talk a little bit about the series as a whole?
Okay, the series as a whole. So when I was crafting this series, I decided instead of going with a real place, I didn't want to do that much research. No, I'm just kidding. Um, I decided to make it a fictional place because I wanted to create a feeling of community and
Mm,
that small town but big city law enforcement type stuff. And really Lake City is more it's more of a small town than like Asheville would be. But um anyway, I tried to make that come across in there, but so I have, 4 friends, and they all knew each other through various things, mostly their jobs and stuff, and they just formed this great friend group, almost like my
mm,
daughter has a friend group, and they call themselves the Squad, and so this is what I wanted for these 4
mm.
ladies, and as of course, as the series grows and goes and heading toward the finish, we add the men into it, and they're just all such great friends. It makes you wanna be a part of it, and I feel like as I'm writing, I'm like, I'm part of this really cool friend group.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, they're not a clique. Like they're welcoming other people into the group as as time goes by and they meet more people and that kind of thing. So that's neat. I never want to write something that comes across as cliquey because I just don't like that. Um, but yeah, but we have friends and groups and community, and they take care of each other and watch out for each other, and occasionally kill people for each
Yeah,
other.
exactly.
Bad
They
guys,
really
only bad guys.
they really have each other's back.
Yes,
When
yeah.
it
I know. That I can be sarcastic when I say that, but, yeah, it's I can say that as a writer. Can I say that right? Fiction,
Yeah,
I
you
write
can say
I have law
yeah,
enforcement, yeah.
yeah.
Um, so, um, yeah, you can edit that part out if you want. So
No, it's
anyway.
good. It's we're good.
Anyway, so they're in this, they're all going through their daily lives and doing their jobs, and they get together occasionally and have their pizza and game night and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's just a really neat little community. I was kind of sad to see it come to an end, but I've moved on to the next one.
Yes, yes. Okay, so give us some titles of the books so we could look them up. I know, you could go and put in an Amazon or any of those places, but just give us the titles for the books in the series.
Okay, sure. So book one is Double Take, and that's the one I did the really cool book tour with. That was fun. I need to do another one.
That you
It's
didn't
hard.
come through Arkansas.
I did not. I know I have already been smacked over the head by Robin Miller
Well, who lives 10
for
minutes from
not
me.
coming. I
He
know.
lives
I'm
10 minutes from
so
me.
she fussed at me. She still fusses at me about that. I
I
told her I
know.
promise next time, and then we'll all get together and have a book signing.
Yes, yes.
Uh, and then let's see. The second book is Target Acquired, and it's about a SWAT team. And then third book, Serial Barn, and the fourth book was just got its title called Final Approach. It's about an air marshal,
Ooh.
and it comes out in August.
And then is there gonna be a novella set that goes with it
For
too?
this, is there a novella? Did I do a novella for this? Seems like I did.
I saw it in one of the reviews. There was a novella that went along with it. This is
Wait a
the
minute,
problem, Lynette, when you write so many books.
that's really bad. Yeah, I think Cornered had, holy smokes, I can't remember. Yeah, I think in Cornered, I took a character from Lake City. Yes, I did. It was James, the hero in the first book, Double Take. His sister's death has her own story. It's a little novella, about 30,000 words, and it's Cornered. And the novella title is called In the Dark, and it came out in
Okay,
November. Yeah, it
okay,
took me a minute. I had to put it back together. I've already written another novella, and halfway through the first book in the next series.
I know it's the funny thing is because we do write quickly, and I know you, I think, write even quicker than I do. When people are like, "Oh, I love that character," and your like mind is like, "What book was that in?"
Yeah.
And what, yeah, what?
Totally. Oh, yes, very much so.
And then I love like when your character said that, and I'm like, "What in the world did my character say?" I have no idea what my character said because it's fresh on their mind because they just finished
They
reading
just
at
read
1
it.
a.m.
I know.
like last night, and so it's completely fresh.
And I've been
Um,
doing this for, like, 20 years now, and, or well, not quite, but close. And especially people who read, like, my earlier stuff, like the really early stuff, like 2008 and 9 books, and they're like, "Are
yes.
you ever gonna do a story about so and so?" I'm like, "Who is that? I don't remember that story, much less who the characters are." So, yeah, I'm like,
Yes.
"No, probably not."
Yeah. Although I bet if you went back and read them, you would probably come up with all kinds of ideas
I
of
probably could, yeah.
spin-off
Yeah.
characters to go with
But
some of those.
but I won't read
Yeah.
them because there would be too many things I'd wanna change. I mean, "I wrote that? Oh, no."
It is so true. It is kind of like a, I don't know, I always feel like I'm changing and growing, so
Yeah.
hopefully, yeah.
Exactly, that's what I mean. I mean, what I how I wrote 18 years ago is way I hope, way different than the way I write now. I hope I've at least grown some during that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's funny because recently I read a screenplay to go with one of my Amish books. But
Oh,
they made it
cool.
not Amish, and they're like, "I hope you don't mind how much we changed it." Like, we kept the core story idea, but they had to change some elements because they made it non-Amish because it's easier to get a non-Amish book or movie made. And
Oh,
I
wow.
just read it and I'm like, "It's adorable." And I'm like, "I don't even remember that much about the book." So it's perfect. Like, I
Oh,
had
that's
nothing,
great.
you know what I mean? Because it's like you don't have to hold on so tightly because it's not like your one and only thing, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's like, "Oh, that was beautiful. You did an excellent job. Oh, we didn't change it too much. Nope, it's perfect." Because I honestly don't remember
When
what
you
was in the first book.
when I had a story, her stolen past made into a Lifetime movie network and it aired back in 2018. Well, the book came out 2011, 12, something like that. I don't even remember. By the time the movie came out, I was watching it going, "What's gonna happen next?" I have no idea.
I love it. Well, that must've been fun. I mean, how was it watching it? Like,
Yeah.
this came out of my mind? That's amazing.
Well, it kind of, sorta, yeah. It was like, "Oh, wow. Oh, that was cheesy. I probably shouldn't have put that." Like,
Yeah.
no, there were a couple of cheesy moments, but I went back and looked. I didn't write them, so that was
Yeah.
no, it was cool. It was very, very cool. It was pretty amazing, actually. I'd love to see it happen again, but yeah,
Yeah,
we'll see.
and you never know. It's so fun. It is so fun
Yeah,
being in this, and, just the having the creativity and just to be able to do the things we do is
yeah,
just amazing. And then just the relationships built with other Christian writers and the support
sure.
of this community is just, it's awesome. I love it.
It
I
is.
love
It
when
is.
we very briefly are able to talk at conferences because we're both
I know.
speaking, and then it's like, "Oh, let's sit for
Bye,
lunch."
bye.
I know, exactly, but
That's
it's fun
fun, but
when we
it's
do.
fun, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of other books though, what are some Christian novels that you've read that you really enjoyed? It could be
Okay.
recently or it could be old favorites.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a fangirl moment. I don't know if you've read the Timeless series by Gabriel May.
Yes.
I love those books. I
I
think
was like, you created a whole thing, like the whole way she
I
does the
know.
time travel, what not really time travel. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and I was just like, "Th I can't, wow." I
Mm.
just loved it. So I just read the 5th one that came out not too long ago. I guess it came out in November or something, but I'm like, "Okay, if you need an advanced reader, let me know. I'll give you an endorsement, whatever you need. Just let me have the next book." Yeah. So, I really, really enjoyed those, and, I try to read some of my favorite authors. I do read in my genre, and of course, I love your books, because I do read try to keep on top of all of the, speculative fiction,
Mhm.
fantasy, and all that kind of stuff because and while it's not the genre that I write in, I still enjoy it, and
Mhm.
I'm a huge historical fan, so, um who was the one that I read most recently? Rosanna White, I read one of hers. Carrie Taransky, I love her Gilded Age
Yeah,
series, and she does a couple of the time travel stuff. So anyway, yeah, so just a few of those. And of
I
course, I
love
love
it.
everybody that writes in my genre: Danny Petrie, Lynn Blackburn, um, Beth Goddard, Jamie J. Wright, and Pepper Basham. I read her for laughs because she makes me laugh. I could just go on and on and on, but how's that for a few?
Perfect. I love it. People will have a lot to choose from. And I always
Yeah.
love an avid readers where someone's like, "I just discovered Christian fiction. Who should I read?" And first of all, I'm like, "You just discovered Christian fiction?" But that's
Where have you
awesome.
been?
Yeah, but second, I'm like, "Oh, I hope you're prepared for 500 comments," because the readers just will list and list and list and list all these amazing people.
And I
Um,
actually love those posts because I pick up a couple of of
yes.
names that I'm like, "Oh, let me try that then." Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I just read a Bethany Turner for the first time last year, and
Oh,
I
she's
love
hysterical.
so funny,
I
so good.
love that.
But
Yeah.
it's like people when you like, "Okay, they keep repeating this, I should probably go and read this book." And I'm like,
I
"Oh, I love it." And my assistant, Kristen, she's like, "I told you." And I'm like, "I know." But yeah, it's so fun. It is fun when people keep repeating stuff,
Yes.
and then you
Yeah,
wanna go and check it out. Oh, I love it. Okay, so
absolutely.
Lynette, where can, readers, listeners, book lovers go to find more
Funny.
information about you and all your books? Yeah.
Alright, so the best place to find me is my website at lynetteeason.com, and sign up for my newsletter. You get a free read if you sign up. It's a short
Ooh.
story, and you get a free book. Um, it's and then Facebook and Instagram. I'm on both of those. I think it's facebook.com/Lynette.Eason, and then Instagram is just at Lynette Eason. Those are the two places, the two social medias I'm most active. I'm still on Twitter. I'm on Pinterest, but honestly, I don't do that much with them. And I those are the 2 big ones,
Yeah.
Instagram and Facebook. And so, because I don't like spending all my time on social media,
Yeah.
but, um,
You have lots of books to write, so you don't have time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
But it's
anyway,
just
that's where you
fun
can find me. My
connecting with
newsletter
fans.
is the best. You get a free book from somebody every month on my newsletter.
Okay. I don't think I'm signed up. I'm gonna go sign up as soon as we're done
Okay,
talking.
sign
So
up.
all right, Lynette. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always fun.